going one with youth, but they would continue. That's the extent of my poetry. We're going to bring verbal mayhem and poets back a few more times. Right now, I want to introduce to you the second half of that team of our adult presenters, William Blinky Rodriguez, who was just interviewed, by the way, on the Spanish language TV here, along with Robert. If you check the Uni station, you can see them in the future. He also is an indigenous Californian raised in San Fernando Valley by a single mother. Blinky, along with his 9 brothers and sisters, attended a number of schools within the Los Angeles School District. Blinky and his wife of 30 years, Lily Rodriguez, has championed the martial arts virtually all over the world. They each achieved world championship status over a 12-year kickboxing career that allowed Blinky and Lily to visit over 47 countries. In 1982, Blinky, Lily, and brother-in-law's 6-time champion, Benny the Jet Urquidez, founded the world-famous Jet Center Gym. And this facility, located in Van Nuys, California, became the mecca of martial arts in the United States. In 1990, however, Blinky's work with youth became personal when he fell victim to gang violence. Sonny, his 16-year-old son, was killed in a drive-by shooting. It is this tragedy that has inspired Dick Blinky to dedicate his life to ending gang violence. Please welcome with me, William Blinky Rodriguez.
Good afternoon. I want you to know I count this an awesome privilege to stand here. By no means do I take it lightly or for granted. I also want to pay my respects to you, Bill, for the support you've given us throughout all the years, sharing your wisdom, and always being unselfish. Another dear friend, I would be remiss if I didn't thank for being here. As a gentleman that I've worked with for 15 years, I want to tell you I love you. I came out here to D.C. recently to do a work in the streets of D.C. The Reverend Chuck L. Turner, may try to stand for a second, but I love you. You know, I don't take this lightly because there's nothing light to take about what's going on today. You know, when I was growing up, I watched Martin Luther King on the news. And I used to ask myself, what did he deal with? What kind of courageous man? What was it like for him when he went home at 3 o'clock in the morning, staring at the ceiling with all the thoughts that were going through his mind? When he used to watch on the news the water hoses and all that was going on in the movement of that day. And I asked myself, when I was growing up, from time to time, not all the time, wow, I wonder what was this man's thoughts? What was he thinking? Remember, you know, he wasn't always a popular figure. They weren't celebrating Martin Luther King Day back then. The truth of the matter is that he was portrayed in some eyes as a pacifist, as a no good for nothing troublemaker, because he spoke truth. And how many know that the truth hurts? All my life, I considered myself a peacemaker since a young kid. And by the way, the name Blinky was given to me by my grandmother as an infant. And I'm a sentimental guy, so I never got rid of the name. And to this day, that's all I'm known by. But as I was growing up, I was afforded a privilege because I came across key people at key times in my life. I consider each of those key people at key times in my life champions in my life. And I know there's champions in this church today. That you know what I'm talking about, that you've given your life to help people. My plea to you is that you don't run out of gas, that you don't lose the fire, that you don't lose the desire in your heart and your soul to get up every day and get about your business, about meeting the needs of broken people. Because we're living in a different world, a different place. You can't identify the world today from 20 years ago. February the 3rd, 1990, after I had traveled and got a little bit of a name as a fighter, you know, my wife was a champion, my brother-in-law Benny, and you know, we had a little dose of success. And I remember like it was yesterday the night my phone rang at a little after 12 o'clock midnight. says, Blinky, something happened to Sonny. And I said, what do you mean something happened to Sonny? He says, yeah, Sonny's at the Holy Cross Hospital. And I said, what do you mean Sonny's at the Holy Cross Hospital? And now I woke up my entire household. And we jumped in the car, we all drove to the Holy Cross Hospital. And for many of you parents and grandparents that are here, your sons and daughters that are athletes, when they get hurt, normally they should come back and see what the problem is. And that had happened many times in my life, raising 5 sons and a daughter that were athletic. But not this time. This time we walked in that emergency room of the hospital, and we wait, and we wait, and we wait, until a priest comes walking in, and he says, Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez. I said, yes. He says, we have a body in room 2 that has no identification, and we need you to come in and identify that body. And I remember in slow motion walking to room 2, and I remember when they opened that door, I see my son's feet hanging out from under a white sheet, and I said, that's my son's feet right there. I don't have to see no more. And I heard my wife, as I was turning to walk away, falling on her knees and saying, Lord, Sonny belongs to you just like all our other children belong to you. You know, what's so sad and so pathetic is that I'm not unique. I'm not unique. How many mothers are crying? How many? Do you understand the pain? Those that understand the pain, they know what I'm talking about. That dimension, that place that you go to, that you cannot articulate in words. And we see the violence escalating, and we see the violence promoted. Do we have fish still over our eyes that we can't see? Are we that far out of touch that we can't see what is being perpetrated upon our communities through mass media, through the spirit of violence and murder? It's a sad scenario, but I believe God wants to raise up champions. I believe it with all my heart and soul. A year before, or a year after, they caught the 3 young men that killed my son. And I remember I had gone into denial, and I said, I don't care about them. My son's gone already, and that's not going to make a difference to me, so what? And I never imagined myself going to the court proceedings. But I remember after 9 months of working with young people, I went back to work. And a month after I went back to work at the Judge Center, I get a phone court. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. And my wife and I walked in court. And when I looked to the left, there was a contingency of people there to support 2 of the 3 young men that murdered my son. And as I looked, they began to jeer at me. And they began to look at me like I had done something wrong. And as I took a step, this bitterness and this hatred began to well up from my shoes. And it began to choke me. And as I'm looking at them, and I took another step, and the Spirit of God was upon me. And he said, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing. And I took another step, and he said, forgive them. And I took another step, and he said, forgive them. And I sat down. And I believe that's when I was impregnated with a seed to forgive. I believe there's power in forgiveness. I believe there's reconciliation in forgiveness that leads to the peace that I think that the great Martin Luther King was talking about. The ability to absorb, to deny yourself, and to do the right thing. I remember 3 months into a 4-month proceeding, I'm at home. And I say to my wife, and she is the one, by the way, with all due respect, she is the one. She is the one. Because with every good man, there's a good woman. And it takes a good woman to keep a good man. And we're getting ready to celebrate our 34th year together. Can you walk in the way you talk? Is my thing. Can you walk it the way you're talking? And I remember that night in my home, 3 months into the court proceedings, I said to Lily, I my heart that God wants us to forgive the 3 guys that murdered Sonny. And my wife didn't look at me. She didn't respond to me. She turned around, she walked up the stairs, didn't say a word until the next morning. The next morning she says, Blinky, I'm in agreement with you. And she caught me by surprise. And I said, an agreement for what? She says, I'm in agreement with you to forgive. And that's when the power began to explode in the atmosphere, in the intangible, in the spiritual realm. The power of forgiveness. And I remember going to sleep. That's why I asked, what was Martin Luther King doing in the wee hours of the morning? When he rolled out of bed on his knees, seeking strength, seeking endurance, seeking desire, seeking commitment, seeking the will, being able to deny himself and put himself out there on the line. I remember rolling out of bed on my knees. And I said, God, we forgive them. We forgive them. And God said, no, that's not good enough. Now I want you to put some action to it. And I want you to go to the courtroom and I want you to tell the 3 guys that murdered your son that you forgive them. And I want you to tell them you forgive them to their faces. And I can't stand here today and be Pollyannish and tell you how that happened. I have no words to articulate it, but it happened. And it's a result of that step of faith that I began to work along with Bobby, along with Bill and others, along with the Rev Chuck Dow and others, because we're only as good as the people around us. And the dunamis power of God exploded on the scene. And we started a peace treaty in the San Fernando Valley. We were able to bind the spirit of murder and violence. And we started a peace treaty. One meeting, never knowing there'd be a second, a third, a fourth. One meeting that turned into 3 years of meetings with 76 gangs. In the neighborhood that killed my son. In the neighborhood that killed my son. Because it's not unconditional. You all move the peace agenda. Young people, older people, powerful people, less powerful people, influential people, less influential people. It's going to take us all. Because we're living in a day of negative-driven society. We have to be the parental optimists. We have to believe. We have to promote hope. But we got to walk it the way we talk it. And whatever hood you're in, we're in the streets. We go to the streets every day. We live in the streets. In an age where guns run rampant throughout the land. But there's those that say, guns don't kill people. People do. But I like to see a drive-by happen without a gun. I like to see that happen. I believe that a gun is the most vicious accomplice to a gang homicide. I've never seen a gun manufacturer donate $1 to a funeral. When I go hear the howling cries of a mother and a family, howling because they lost theirs. And then society saying, their parents will not go to jail. They should go to jail too. It's the parents' fault. In an age that people promote zero tolerance. What would have happened to you if they were promoting zero tolerance back in the day? What would have happened to you? What does zero tolerance mean? That isn't very inclusive, is it? I trust today that Martin Luther King, this special day, it's not just another day that my partner said. Listen, if it's just another day for you, then take a look in the mirror. Because we got to be about something, we're going to fall for anything. Compassion. Conservative compassion. Conservative compassion. I heard my brother say one time, because there are some conservative compassions. Man, we can do it. We're doing it. We've seen it happen. Look at, law enforcement had me under surveillance for 7 years. I have no record. Zero record. I raised all my children. I've been there with the same woman 34 years, and I had my phone tapped. I was under surveillance. Why? Because we chose to go to them. We chose to touch them. We chose to go into the highways and the byways and reach out and touch them. But see, sometimes if you touch the lepers, they think that you might be a leper. But see, the perseverance, that word I believe you have to learn perseverance by the letter. Check this out. 15 years later, we just promoted we've done multiple mobilization peace marches. We've done 175 games with rival gangs, tackle football, handball tournaments, you name it, basketball. But the last one, right before Christmas, we did a partnership with the Los Angeles Police Department. We marched together. We had a softball tournament with 8 teams, 6 gang teams, the Lepers, 1 LAPD team, and 1 gang unit probation officer put a team. We had 8 teams. Hey, the final game, 24-17. Audrey Van Nuys, the LAPD. But I want to tell you, there's good and bad people from all levels of the social and economic ladder. Us, the wise men, it's our responsibility to sift through and compel, massage, persuade, cajole, convince them to reach out and touch somebody. God bless you.
Thank you so much, my brother, for sharing this very inspiring